Who should pay when it comes to the first date? Should it be the males or should it be the females? It's one of the most old age questions that we have in the book. And throughout history, from the start of time to the current period that we're in of 2021, it's always been the male gender that has paid when it's come to the first date. And you could argue that at the start of time, at the start of history, it made sense that the male gender paid when it came to the first date. Because in those time periods, in those time frames, the female gender had no liberty, had no rights, and had no freedoms. They had no freedoms to vote, and they had zero liberty and rights to participate and work in the labor workforce. Meaning, in those time periods, in those time frames, the female genders were usually stay-at-home wives. They were not allowed to work. They were not allowed to get an education. Even if they wanted to leave the house, if they wanted to go hang out with their friends, if they wanted to just go get groceries, they had to ask permission. They had to get permission by the men just to be allowed to go outside. And they had zero income to their name. All the income that was at the family household or was at the family bank was all the money that was made by the male counterparts living in the house. It was all the money that was made by the fathers, by the brothers, and by their husbands. So in those time periods, the females had nothing. They had no liberty, they had no rights, and they had no freedoms. So when they went out on dates or when they went out to dinner with a boy that they liked or with a man that they liked, it made sense that the male counterpart paid money or paid for the check that was given at the end of the dinner. It made sense at that time. But as we started evolving and we started getting better as a society, and we started seeing the female gender as equal to men, we thought, you know what, we need to start changing laws that we have because those laws are wrong. And you saw in the 1920s, the US changed their labor workforce laws. So they took out the laws that said that females were not allowed to work, and they changed that and they said the females were allowed to work and participate in the labor workforce. But you could still argue that from the time frame of 1920 to about 1980, it still made sense that the male counterparts paid money when it came to the first date. Because even though females were allowed to work, there was still a lot of stigma around females working. Because a lot of factory owners, business owners at that time, when the laws changed, they did not want to hire the female gender because they thought the females were not capable of doing the same work that the men were. They thought the females would not be productive enough as the men are. So why should I hire the female? I'm just going to go with the men. I don't want the female working in my business because she's going to slow everything down. She's not going to be capable of doing the same work that the men are. So although they were given the right to work, not a lot of them were hired by businesses, by factory. So a lot of them were still unemployed. And the ones that were hired, that were luckily hired by those businesses, by those factory workers, they did not make enough money. They made way less money than their male counterparts were for doing the same work. So you could argue and see that, you know what, it makes sense. The male gender still pays when it comes to the first date. But as we come to now, as we come to 2021, where you could argue that all the freedoms, all the rights and equality is there. Women have every freedom to do whatever they want. They have every right to work in any positions that they want. And they have every single right that they want in the world. They can vote, they can go work, they can be presidents, they can be prime ministers of the biggest and powerful countries in the world. They can be CEOs of billion-dollar companies. They can be doctors, nurses, they can be anything they want to be. Well, we still have men that are forced into paying when it comes to the first date. And it's ironic. It's ironic. I'll explain why it's ironic. Because one of the biggest movements that we have going on in 2021 is what? Is the feminist movement. What is the feminist movement about? It's about fighting for equality of both sexes when it comes to every aspect of society. For example, work. And we have this feminist movement going around. And if you go to these people's marches, if you go to wherever they're holding events, although you could argue that's usually about hating Republicans and hating Trump, but if you do go to these movements and these marches, you will see all these females and even male marching, and they have signs saying equality, equality, equality. Women deserve equality in every aspect of society. Women deserve equality when it comes to work. Women deserve equality when it comes to anything, right? Any aspect of our society. And you see these women arguing and talking about how they talk about the wage gap, how about how women are paid about 77 cents to a dollar, which is wrong, which is very wrong. And I'm going to make a video about that as well, about how that study was proven wrong very easily. But they argue about those things. They argue about equality and how women should be treated equal. Women should be given all the equal rights that the men have. But it's ironic because the same women who do that go on those marches that talk about equality, when they are forced to go on a date and they're forced to pay, like a man is forced to pay when it comes to the first date, these females pay because obviously they have to, but they never go on another date with the man because they're like, how dare you make me pay? It's the man's duty to pay when it comes to the first date. So I just found that ironic. The people that are talking about equality, that want equality for both sexes when it comes to work, when it comes to every aspect of a society, are the ones that laugh and don't go on dates with men that tell them, okay, let's pay equal amounts of the check. If we're talking about equality, when we're talking about equality on every aspect of a society, so when it comes to first dates, these feminists should be covering 50% of the bill because that's equality. You cover 50 and the men covers 50. But what's happening is all these people that are screaming equality, 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 equality. We're women, we should be treated equal because we are equal to men. Don't actually take the same action when equality comes into account. They laugh and scoff at the idea of paying when it comes to a first date. It's laughable to them. They're like, what, you want me to pay on a first date? Yeah, I'll pay, but I'll never see you again. But when it comes to this question, it's very simple for me. When it comes to this question, who should pay when it comes to first date? It's actually very easy. It's very easy. I just wanted to point out the ironicness about the feminist movement, about how they scream, equality, equality, equality. And then when they get a chance to do something that's equal, when these females get a chance to do something that's equal, they don't do it. They don't do it. If they're forced to do it, guess what? They don't even see the men anymore. They don't go on second dates with the same guy because they're like, how dare you make me pay? How dare you make me pay? How dare you make me take the same action that men have been taking since the start of history? Let's come back to the question, who should pay when it comes to the first date? And it's very simple. It's actually not that hard. It's the person that asks the other person on a date. If I ask a girl on a date, I should be the one that should be covering the check. If a girl asks me on a date, she should be the one that should be covering the check. So it's whoever asks the other person on a date. It's not the male gender that should be paying every single time because, we're men and we like to be alpha and that's why we pay. No. It should be the person that asks the other person on a date. It can be a man to a woman, it can be a woman to a man, it can be a man to a man, and it can be a woman to a woman. So it's whoever asks the other person on a date is the one that should be paying when it comes to the date because they're the ones that want to take you out. They're the ones that want to treat you. So they should be the one covering the check, not the other person. It's that simple.